Go.
Good evening. The meeting of the Aurora City Council is hereby called to order for October 27, 2020. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas,
Here.
Alderman Garza,
Here.
Alderman Masiacos,
Present.
Alderman Donnell,
Here.
Alderman Franco,
Here.
Alderman Seville,
Here.
Alderman Hart Burns,
Here.
Alderman Smith,
Here.
Alderman Bug,
Here.
Alderman Lopshay,
Here.
Alderman Jenkins,
Here.
Alderman O'Connor,
Here.
Mayor Urban's present.
On June 26, 2020, the governor of Illinois issued a statewide disaster declaration related to public health concerns. As head of this body, I've determined that an in-person meeting or a meeting otherwise conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act is neither practical nor prudent because of the disaster. This meeting will be conducted by internet teleconference without the physical presence of a quorum. Prior to the commencement of this meeting, all members of this body were verified that they can see and hear one another. I further find the physical presence of members of the public is not feasible at this time due to the disaster, and more specifically, the practical difficulties associated with accommodating the public in an accessible, hygienic location that allows for appropriate social distancing. Alternative arrangements have been made to allow the public to contemporaneously hear all discussions and roll call votes live on the city's official website, on Facebook, and via Zoom teleconference. Notice of these arrangements have been given in accordance with the Opens Meetings Act. The public may address this body consistent with the rules previously adopted and recorded and is adapted by Mayor Laura. I, Richard Irvin, am physically present at our regular meeting location as defined by Resolution R20-124. All votes shall be conducted by roll call, and a verbatim record of this meeting shall be made and maintained in accordance with the Opens Meetings Act. Mr. Muhammad?
Sir, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Tonight's leading our Pledge of Allegiance. If you can please unmute, and we're going to ask our alderman to mute as he leads the Pledge of Allegiance. Is Gabriel Bradford. He's a homeschool sophomore here in the city of Aurora, where his favorite subjects are history, math, and choir. Although he's homeschooled, he still participated in the East Aurora High School Choir last year and the ILMEA Honors Choir the same year. He's a member of our Aurora Youth Court, our Aurora Youth Council. He's a volunteer for the Rotary Festival of Lights, a volunteer for the Marie Wilkinson Food Pantry. And I tell you, he's been so integral in helping us at our 5 pop-up pantries that we've held at Phillips Park as a young volunteer. He also is the youngest student who has joined us for our community listening sessions with the police and the community. He has some great suggestions in that as well. I'll talk about that in a bit in my report. But tonight, we can please welcome Gabriel Bradford to lead us in the pledge. Gabriel?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. We appreciate you and your leadership. And thanks for your input in our community listening sessions that will help us for an event that we're planning next month. Thanks to you. Mayor, tonight we also have invocation. I'm not certain if the technical issue will work out. Our invocation tonight was planned to Servant George Rayford. We're going to ask his good friend and Sister Alderman Hart Burns to do the invocation in his stead. Servant Rayford is celebrating his 40th year in the ministry, and in total his 25th year as senior pastor of New Community Baptist Church, soon to be 75 years old. And this weekend, it was a beautiful dedication, street dedication, corner of New York Street and Smith Boulevard, where his church is at, one of the original basement churches of Aurora, that's now 90 years old this year. Servant George Rayford, look to join us. I'll turn it to you, Alderman Hart Burns.
Thank you so much. Father God, you are good. You are worthy of all our honor and praise. We thank you, Lord God, for us coming together for a city council meeting. We ask, oh God, that you be with us as we make decisions that affect this city. We ask you, oh God, to look on Servant George Rayford and his beautiful bride, none other than Sister Ruby Rayford. We ask, oh God, that you continue to direct us as we make decisions that affect this city. Be with our police and fire, those that are serving, those that have served. Be with the medical community, all of those that have been involved with the COVID. We know that it's a hard work. We know that it's a hard battle, but we know that you're God and you're God all by yourself. Be with all the families that have contracted COVID. Be with them, oh God, and put your arms around them to lift them up and their families up, oh God. But we thank you for Sunday street dedication, for none other honoring a man who has a life-changing ministry, who would visit those in the hospital that was sick daily, oh God. And we just thank you for him and all that he's done. We ask, oh God, that you bless us individually and bless us collectively. We ask it all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to continue to the presentations.
Please, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our first presentation, and thanks to Priscilla Cruz from Breaking Free for being here to accept it. This week, City Council is Red Ribbon Week. Remember it well. We used to participate throughout the city for a number of years, October 23rd through 31st, 2020. We'll read the proclamation, turn it over to the mayor, and accepting the proclamation will be one of the chairmen of the committee to help pull Red Ribbon Week together. Even though our schools are generally remote, they're still working together. Whereas alcohol and drug abuse affect individuals, family, and communities across the United States of America, and whereas Red Ribbon Week offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, and whereas Red Ribbon Week will be celebrated in Aurora and in hundreds of communities across the nation on October 23rd through 31st, and whereas businesses, government, law enforcement, media, healthcare providers, religious institutions, schools, and other community-based organizations will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing red ribbons and participating in drug prevention activities.
Now, therefore, I, Richard C. Irvin, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 31st as Red Ribbon Week in the City of Aurora.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have with us from Breaking Free, Priscilla Cruz. She's also the chair of the Aurora Community Alliance and part of the Alliance's Red Ribbon Week subcommittee. She's here to share a little bit about what they're doing this week and to accept the proclamation. Priscilla?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So this year's Red Ribbon Week has been a lot different than the ones in the past, mostly because we have an activity set for every single day. We used to, in the past years, just hand out like informational flyers, posters, let all of our youth advisory committees in our Aurora community also know about what's going on. But this year we decided to bring together local agencies, all of the ACA members, and community youth to try to raise awareness for Red Ribbon Week, also raise awareness for the history of DEA agent Kiki Camarena, and then also raise awareness for drug trafficking prevention efforts that all of the different officers around the United States have been trying to implement. So some of the things that ACA Aurora Community Alliance has been working on for Red Ribbon Week is today we actually just released a video where all of the ACA members decorated a door red in their agency to try to bring awareness and support to Red Ribbon Week. Tomorrow, Above the Influence at ATI, this is a West Aurora High School Youth Advisory Committee. They're going to be actually hosting a cruise by, which is like a little mini parade tomorrow from 4 to 5 around the West Aurora High School, starting on Plum Street. So people are able to come and view that if they would like. There are COVID regulations. You have to stay in your car. You can view them from your car in the parking lot. Please just don't get out because we do want everyone to enjoy it in a safe distance as well. And then on Thursday, we actually have Bridge the Gap of Aurora Operation Snowball at East Aurora High School. They will be having their first meeting and they're going to have Representative Hernandez there, and she's going to be speaking on her past experience being a Snowball alum and also being an East Aurora High School alum as well. And then Friday is our last event, and that's going to wrap up all of our ACA and Red Ribbon Committee activities. And Friday, we're going to be hosting the very first Aurora Operation Snowball meeting. This is going to be hosted with me, a different prevention specialist that's part of ACA as well, and then Teresa Rosa Jackson, who is the chairman for Operation Snowball at East Aurora High School. So tune in all week at the Breaking Free website for all of these updates, for links to join all of the meetings as well.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. We'll be sharing in our social media as well. Please give our best to Teresa Rosa Jackson and your entire team with the ACA. Happy Red Ribbon Week, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Being here. And Mayor and City Council, just a brief update on our change initiative. As we told you, we'll bring you some topics each week. This evening at the PHST committee was a presentation on part of the Civilian Review Board. And we know on the agenda tonight is body cameras, which are two key parts of our change initiative. Just to highlight our community listening sessions, this is our fourth week, this week, October 29th. We've had 3 successful sessions throughout different parts of town. Thank you to Alderman Donnell for joining us October 8th. Thank you to Alderman Yamas for joining us on the 15th, and Alderwoman Hart Burns for joining us last week on the 22nd. We invite City Council out for the 29th and or the 5th to join us. Because of the new regulations to mitigation, our numbers are cut in half. And so you'll see that reflected on the registration site. But to the aldermen who want to participate, your seats definitely are still available. Those are community seats that are on the site. But when you look at what's happening at listening sessions, a lot of emotions, a lot of personal stories, a lot of pleas, a lot of personal connections that happens. And that was the goal. We really wanted to get out there and just feel the pulse. And what we realized through this process is that certainly this can't be a one-stop type of deal, that, you know, certainly a regular type of schedule built in, whether it's quarterly or a couple times a year, where these opportunities that we can connect and just speak with each other on these particular topics is necessary from a community standpoint. We've certainly taken different recommendations, built upon recommendations that were already out there. We met with the Attorney General of the state of Illinois, General Kwame Raoul, and share with him some of the stories and things that we're doing with the Change Initiative, including this post the morning after a session with Mr. Edward Ash, who's, of course, you know, Edward's been very public and has shared his concerns about the community. But I think what he spoke about on social media the morning after, speaking about the community coming together and really moving forward, is the goal. That we certainly can find the space physically, you know, literally and figuratively, to be able to come together to change, to help us as Aurorans necessarily grow our necessary growth and empowerment. And that's what the voices do. So we invite the community out, we invite the aldermen out to join us at the next 2 listening sessions for the Change Initiative. And now Gabriel Bradford, who's here, who did our pledge, was with us at one of our listening sessions at New England Church. And he came up after, and we were talking afterwards. You know, he said, as youth, as high school students, this is our city too, and that's why I came tonight, to help be a voice. And from that conversation, he says, "Well, you know, this youth listening session specifically for high schoolers would be very beneficial to us." And so, Gabriel, thank you for that. As we look, and we will announce the date shortly, Thursday in November, for a specific high school, our city community listening session, that we can then speak from a youth perspective, or they can speak from a youth perspective to our city officials, to our police officials, as we move Aurora forward. As Gabriel said, he says, their leadership now, the mayor's in leadership now, the chief's in leadership now. In a few years, it'll be us. So I want to help our city prepare us to continue to move forward. So if we can give Gabriel a round of applause. Thanks, Gabe, for your voice. Thanks for your vision. We look forward to our city community listening session, and we will publicize that date and work with our school districts to secure our students for that. And Gabe certainly will help to moderate that session. Okay. Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to the next portion of the agenda, public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to offer public comment this evening?
We do, Mr. Mayor.
All right, can you read the rules of public comment, please, ma'am?
Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, all persons shall be permitted an opportunity to address public officials under the rules established and recorded by the council. Under our rules, any person may address the city council for up to 3 minutes, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for all public comment. No person other than the timekeeper or the chair, for the purpose of maintaining order, may interrupt a person recognized for public comment during his or her comments. Members of the city council shall not engage with nor respond to a speaker during the time set aside for public comment. Staff is directed to follow up with members of the public with respect to any concerns raised during public comment within the scope of the city's authority following the adjournment of this meeting.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you read the name of the first person wishing to offer public comment?
Levi Herrera.
Mr. Herrera, can you hear my voice? Mr. Herrera? Can you hear me, Mr. Herrera?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, starting now, you have 3 minutes to offer public comment. Begin.
Okay. I'm here to speak against the resolution to spend a little bit over $2 million on body cameras for the Aurora Police Department. That's resolution number 20-0675. When I hear the Aurora City Council wants to spend that much money on body cameras for the police, it seems to me that they're more interested in investing money into the police rather than in their own citizens. I would rather see us invest in stuff that prevents crimes from happening, like mental health facilities or providing assistance to our working class citizens. That way we work to prevent crimes from happening at the source of the problem, the people who actually do it, rather than putting more money into the police to catch crimes that happened or are already happening. If we invest into the people of Aurora to reduce crimes, we will make a stronger community because we'll have supported our citizens through hardships instead of throwing them in jail cells. I want to stop crimes from happening, and I don't see body cameras as a way to reduce crimes. Body cameras are supposed to keep police accountable for their actions, but research shows that's not the case. I suggest we provide more funding to other places instead of the police, because I don't think handing the police more money will solve anything. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Clerk, do we have any additional speakers for public comment?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next section of the agenda. Next, we have public hearing. Clerk, can you read the first item under the public hearing?
20-0620, public hearing regarding the creation of the proposed Fox Valley Mall Tax Increment Finance District.
I call this public hearing to order on the proposed Fox Valley Mall Tax Increment Finance District. This public hearing is being held as required by Section 5A of the Illinois Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act, 65 ILCS 5/11-74.4-5A. Notice of the hearing was mailed and published in the newspaper as required by law. The purpose of the hearing is for the City Council to consider the creation of the Fox Valley Mall TIF District and for the public to offer comment to the City Council about the creation of this TIF district. I now ask the city staff to give the City Council an overview of the proposed TIF district. Mr. Trevor Dick.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Trevor Dick, Director of Development Strategy and Facilitation for the City of Aurora. I'm just going to load up my presentation here this evening. As the mayor said, Council, I'm going to give a brief presentation of the proposed Fox Valley Mall TIF district. My presentation will follow the following format, which I think many of you have seen for the other TIFs that we've been presenting. The first is the actual redevelopment project and plan, the TIF mechanism, the qualifying factors, the key elements of the TIF plan, and then finally the next steps. The proposed redevelopment project area is located along the Route 59 commercial corridor and is centered on the Fox Valley Mall shopping complex. The importance of the redevelopment of the site is highlighted in prior planning efforts, including last year's Route 59 corridor plan that was approved by council. And for a variety of reasons that are outlined in both that corridor study and the report prepared by Kane McKenna, our TIF consultants, conditions exist which challenge the area's potential for redevelopment. Changing national trends in shopping behaviors have had a sizable adverse impact on regional and closed malls in recent years, and I think we've even seen that even more so during this pandemic. Although there are a number of articles, reports, and data that are easily available and all very much relevant to the Fox Valley Mall, one statistic that I wanted to mention tonight that I think is very relevant is that in October 2019, online retail sales surpassed brick and mortar general merchandise sales for the first time in history. As you can imagine, in such a large, unique complex such as this traditional mall, there are significant quote unquote ramp up costs associated with what we call repositioning this mall as larger malls. It's important to note that any negative impacts are not only localized to the mall, but there are several ancillary, easy word for me to say, users that will also be adversely impacted. And in this instance, the entire corridor on both sides of Route 59 in the city of Aurora and in the city of Naperville will likely see negative impacts if redevelopment does not occur. Without the use of city planning and economic development resources such as TIF to mitigate such negative conditions, potential redevelopment projects are not likely. According to our TIF consultant, the mall could be redeveloped with TIF-related TIF-related assistance, and their report concludes by recommending TIF designation. This here is a slide showing the parcel map, showing the boundaries of the proposed TIF district. It's important to notice on this that we're not only just including what I call the mall proper, which is the football shape, we're also including the larger rectangle that goes out to Route 59, New York Street to the north, Commons to the west, and McCoy Street to the south. If you're very familiar with the mall, there's a lot of outlots that are also in need of improvements, and this TIF district will help capture all of those other potential users as well. Some of the goals that are being pursued, I'll just quickly cut through these, are that we're trying to reduce or eliminate any adverse impacts. We want to return underutilized property that are located within this area to productive use and strengthen the overall tax base. And we also want to provide high quality development. One thing that was very loud and clear in the Route 59 corridor plan is that anything that happens in this site, as well as the larger corridor, needs to be high quality, look good, and help improve our image and identity. And lastly, we want to make sure that we accomplish the redevelopment of this area over a reasonable amount of time. The TIF plan complies with all legal provisions, including that it is larger than 1.5 acres, and the but-for requirement is being met, and meaning redevelopment is feasible only with utilization of TIF. As everyone on council knows, we have worked very closely with the Indian Prairie School District number 204 regarding this proposed TIF. And I'm very happy to note that this TIF plan is in alignment with the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Indian Prairie School District 204 regarding tax increment financing in this corridor. Three things that I wanted to mention here and they're on the slide that are very important is that the TIF term in this corridor can only be for 15 years instead of the conventional 23 years. Second, the size of financial incentives and any bond debt secured by the TIF need to be approved through the JRB. And also, the last one is that the pursuing redevelopment activities would add student generating residential development. These TIF areas cannot include generating, residential development that generates students. The next three slides provide a quick overview of the foundation of TIF. This slide illustrates the general process of how a TIF plan is created based upon the city's economic development goals. This is the slide that Kane McKenna uses quite often, famously called their bucket slide. It shows how the TIF splits the property tax revenue generated into two buckets, the larger bucket on the left representing the base revenues for all local governments, and the smaller bucket on the right represents the increment revenues for redevelopment within the TIF. This graph shows that ideally a successful TIF district produces a very positive increment revenue over time. According to our TIF consultants, Kane McKenna, the area qualifies as a conservation area. And under the TIF Act, there are two requirements that need to be met. First, 50% or more of the structures in the area need to be 35 years of age or older, and at least 3 or more of 13 possible factors are present and are reasonably distributed. These next two slides, I won't go through them this evening, but these are the 13 possible factors of qualification. The most important thing to keep in mind is this slide here, that 53% of the structures are over the age of 35 years of age, and that instead of the minimum of 3 factors, 6 factors are found to be present in this area. And I'll quickly go through the 6 factors that our TIF consultants found. The first is lagging or declining EAV. You can see on this table that over the last several years, the total EAV has been lagging and going down. The next is excessive vacancies. And I think that it's important to note that it's not hard to see, even though the owners of the mall are trying very hard to fill in the vacancies, having 2 of the large anchors sitting vacant is very noticeable. And those are being the Sears property and the Carson's property. Vacancies are also found in the outlots. One of the largest is the former Toys R Us building. And then there's sporadic vacancies in the office buildings around the corridor. It's also important to note that adverse impacts in the immediate area and across the Route 59 corridor were noted. There's deterioration found in a lot of the surface improvements throughout the study area, including the parking lots, as well as the facade of the buildings, not just to the mall itself, but in the secondary buildings in the outlots surrounding the area. A lack of community planning. This isn't surprising. The mall was developed in the 70s prior to the city's 1984 comp plan and long before the Route 59 corridor study. It's a very visible property that has seen a lack of community planning. And one thing that I think we should note in terms of transportation, that any improvements are going to need internal circulation and parking improvements to support more contemporary uses. Obsolescence, the mall's last comprehensive renovation was back in 1998. There's a lot of improvements that are needed, including HVAC and roof repairs. Changing market conditions, I've already noted that. Because of what's happening in malls nationwide, there's potential, a very limited reuse potential for redevelopment or adaptive reuse in these areas. Inadequate utilities. A lot of the water mains are aged. There's been a lot of history of breakage and water main leaks throughout the corridor that need to be replaced. There's also 7 intersections that have been identified which would require improvements to the traffic signals as redevelopment occurs in this mall. The last part here is the key elements of the TIF plan. One thing that we wanted to mention here is that any improvements in this area are going to be expensive. The EAV for the proposed TIF district right now is around $51 million. The budget represents any maximum possible amount of expenditures by the city, and they're sized to accommodate potential development requirements. It's important to note that this is a 15-year budget, once again, not 23 years, and it's not tied to an annual budget. Examples of TIF eligible costs include public improvements, facilities, and other incentives for private redevelopment. As I mentioned earlier, any type of redevelopment on a property this scale, this size would be expensive. The proposed redevelopment plan is $164 million. And you can see here that this is potential improvement projects that could occur in this area. Finally, the next steps. After tonight's public hearing, the ordinances designating the TIF district would be considered no earlier than 14 days after the close of this hearing, but no more than 90 days after. That concludes my presentation this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
And I asked the city staff to provide the city with information about the joint review board proceedings regarding the TIF district.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of the process of creating the TIF district, a joint review board meeting was held on September 21st, 2020. Prior to the meeting, notice was sent as required by law. Members of the joint review board are representatives from various taxing districts that are impacted by the creation of this TIF district. At the conclusion of the meeting on September 21st, 2020, the Joint Review Board recommended that the City Council create the TIF district.
All right. Is there anyone who would like to be heard for the purpose of public comment on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we do have one registered speaker, Mr. Frank Pompanella.
Mr. Pompanella, do you hear my voice? Mr. Pompanella? Mr. Pompanella. Mr. Anderson, is a Mr. Pompanella on the line?
No, no one by that name. There are several with phone numbers only, Mayor. So perhaps they're waiting to unmute or attempting to unmute.
Are there any others other than Mr. Pompanella that would like to offer public comment? Is there anyone else that would like to offer public comment on this item? I'll give Mr. Pompanella one more opportunity. Mr. Pompanella, can you hear my voice? All right. Are there any questions or comments from the City Council? Seeing no additional person wishing to be heard.
Mr. Mayor, I move we close the public hearing.
All right. There's been a motion by Alderman Hart Burns to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Jenkins. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Garza,
yes,
Alderman Masiacos,
Yes.
Alderman Donnell,
Yes.
Alderman Franco,
Yes.
Alderman Seville,
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns,
Yes.
Alderman Smith,
yes,
Alderman Bog,
Yes.
Alderman Lopshay,
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins,
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor.
Yeah.
12 ayes.
The hearing is adjourned. Next, we will hear both the direct to council consent agenda and the consent agenda and the actual regular consent agenda together in full. Will the clerk now please read both agendas in full?
20-0399, a resolution authorizing Trotsky Investigative Polygraph Incorporated as the provider for services of pre-employment polygraph assessments through December 31st, 2020. 20-0400, a resolution authorizing Stannard and Associates as the provider for services of pre-employment psychological assessments through December 31st, 2020. 20-0495, a resolution requesting approval to utilize Community Development Block Grants funds for Tinkerworks LLC, 21 West 2nd Street, number 300, Hinsdale, Illinois, 60521, for delivery of science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics training to 634 of Aurora's underserved youth in the amount not to exceed $100,000. 20-0544, an ordinance granting revisions to the special use permit for a social service agency's charitable organizations, health-related facilities, and similar uses when not operating for pecuniary profit use on the property located at 680 South River Street. 20-0578, a resolution authorizing the purchase of one Zal X series cardiac monitor defibrillator and accessories using the Silver Cross Purchasing Cooperative in the amount of $28,718.22 for the Aurora Fire Department from Zal Medical Corporation of Chelmsford, Massachusetts. 20-0587, a resolution requesting approval of a final plat for lots 1B and 3 of Westridge Corporate Center re-subdivision Phase 3 located at 801 Bilter Road. 20-0589, a resolution requesting approval of a final plan revision for lots 1B and 3 of Westridge Corporate Center re-subdivision Phase 3 located at 801 Bilter Road for a warehouse, distribution, and storage services use. 20-0599, a resolution authorizing the execution of a sales tax reimbursement agreement with Lindsay Windows, Illinois, LLC. 20-0616, a resolution authorizing execution of a wage and insurance rollover agreement between the City of Aurora and Local 3298, Council 31, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. 20-0617, a resolution authorizing execution of a rollover agreement between the City of Aurora and Local 1514, Council 31, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020. 20-0621, a resolution accepting the improvements and waiving the maintenance security for Quality Tool Incorporated parking lot improvements, 727 Hill Avenue. 20-0622, a resolution authorizing the mayor to permit city staff to apply for an Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant for Montgomery Road Multi-Use Path Extension, Middlebury Drive to Illinois Route 59 project to extend the Montgomery Road Multi-Use Path from Middlebury Drive to Illinois Route 59 and to reserve local funding share for both engineering and construction if grant is awarded to the city. 20-0628, a resolution establishing the maximum number of Class B on-site consumption licenses unofficially related to the application from NH3 Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Patelli's Gyros and Beef, to be located at 1515 Butterfield Road, Aurora, Illinois, 60504. 20-0622, an ordinance amending sections 2-38, 2-59, and 2-60 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Aurora, Illinois. And the direct to council consent agenda, item 1, 20-0627, a resolution approving reduction number 1 for Laurelton Place. 20-0650, approval of the minutes of the Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 City Council meeting. 20-0667, an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 202 Mitchell Road Industrial Park, vacant lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, northeast corner of I-88 Mitchell Road, and calling for a public hearing on the proposed special service area in the city of Aurora, Kane County, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith. PIN numbers 15-02-302001, 15-02-302-002, 15-02-302-003, 15-02-302-004, 15-02-351-001, 15-02-351-002, and rescinding ordinance 020-035 passed June 23rd, 2020 in its entirety. 20-0668, an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 203, Bardwell Community Subdivision, Fox Valley Developers, LLC, and calling for a public hearing on the proposed special service area in the city of Aurora, Kane County, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith for pins 15-27-156-056, 15-27-156-057, 15-27-156, 058, 15-27-156, 059, 15-27-156, 060, and 15-27-156, 061. 20-0669, an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 204, CW Bardwell School, and calling for a public hearing on the proposed special service area in the city of Aurora, Kane County, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith for pins 15-27-301001 and 15-27-301-022, 550 South Lincoln Avenue. 20-0670, an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 205, ground effects, and calling for a public hearing on the proposed special service area in the city of Aurora, DuPage County, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith. Pins 07-20-103-047 and 07-20-103-048 at 7 South 343 North Eola Road.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any motions to approve? I'm sorry, are there any questions or motions to remove items from either the direct to council consent agenda or the consent agenda? Which is the regular.
Mayor, if I may interject real quick,
Alderman Masiacos.
I'd like to get some insight, maybe some guidance from our legal counsel on item 0668, and if I need to abstain with it for any reason to stay in conformity with my past votes on that development area.
Alderman, you may wish to abstain on that particular one, given your refusal on matters generally related to that development.
Okay, so may I ask that's taken off the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor?
That's so moved. That I don't know that we need a second on that one. It's just not consent, so we'll take that particular item off the consent agenda.
On a direct consent matter, a second would not be required.
All right, so that item will be removed, clerk. And
thank you, Mayor.
Put it under unfinished business.
Mr. Mayor, was that 20-0668?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any additional items, questions or items that need to be removed from the direct consent agenda or the consent agenda, which is the regular consent agenda? There being none, there was already a motion by Alderman Hard-Burns to accept the consent agenda, seconded by Alderman Jenkins. There being no further questions, will the clerk please call the roll on the consent agenda, lest the item removed by Alderman Masiacos, as he is going to abstain or abstain from it.
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hart-Burns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman Locke?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
12 ayes.
Motion carried. The direct to city council consent agenda and the consent agenda are both approved. All right, clerk, can we go on to unfinished business? Can you read the first item under unfinished business?
20-0632, an ordinance amending 020-028, granting additional time for compliance of the special use for a cannabis dispensing facility at 35 North Broadway that was granted on April 28th, 2020.
So moved.
There's been a motion to adopt the ordinance by Alderman Seville, seconded by Alderman Garza. Are there any questions or discussion regarding this ordinance? Question or discussion? Alderman Bug.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On this matter, I guess for planning, do we know if there are any possible dispensaries that had the medical that are presently looking for a location? We said at COW that this would tie up our downtown location for a year. Are there any entities that have that +1 that are presently looking?
Not to my knowledge, at least they have not come to the planning and zoning division to ask for information. They would need to go through the same special use process as all of the other cannabis dispensing facilities would.
Yeah, but they've already been approved by the state, correct?
Well, they have a +1. That doesn't mean that they have a license from the state, correct?
So at least they have that one aspect complete, where our current petitioner is, of course, still trying to be approved by the state.
Correct. They would still need to go through the special use process with the city, though.
Yes, yes, okay.
Anything else, Alderman Bug?
No, that's it.
Are there any other questions, comments from the Alderman? There being none, clerk, will you call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hartburns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman Lopshay?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
No.
11 ayes, 1 nay.
Motion carries. The ordinance is approved. For the next item, before I ask the clerk to read it, I will be recusing myself for the next 2 items and asking that Mayor Pro Tem Alderman O'Connor take over. I will both mute myself as well as take myself off video. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the next item, please?
20-0659, an ordinance setting the compensation of the alderman elected in and after 2021 in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code and the Local Government Officer Compensation Act.
Is there a motion?
Moved.
Motion by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Franco. In my capacity now as serving as Mayor Pro Tem, I would have had some comments as serving as chairman of the Finance Committee, but I will wait to allow anyone, any other member of the council to speak on this issue first. So Alderman Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I recently had a conversation with our CFO, Marty Lyons, and as we all know, our budget's going to be tight this year, and it looks like it could be tight for the next couple of years due to the COVID pandemic. And these are tough times for many people. Just last week, I talked to an individual who was having trouble paying his utility bills. Hopefully we got that solved. I also talked to an individual that was fighting hard to keep his restaurant in business. And in light of these tough times, it's not really seemed to me to be the right time to be recommending raises for aldermen. So I will be voting no.
Alderman Masiacos.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think very similar in the sentiment to my colleague, Alderman Bill Donnell in the 4th Ward. It's difficult for me to come across as being tone deaf to emerging challenges I've been hearing recently from residents in my ward who are torn right now, some of them who are torn between what to pay first, a mortgage payment or a medical bill or groceries. But I truly respect the differing insights from my fellow ward aldermen and at-large colleagues of the city council. But I will be voting no on this, on the resolutions for pay raises for city council members at this point in time. Thank you.
Mr. Alderman Loshie.
Yeah, I will agree with my two previous aldermen, Donnell and Masiakos. I had a ward cleanup day Saturday, and I can't tell you how many people brought it up. And I have a lot of restaurants in my ward, and some of them have 25, 30 employees, and they're probably not going to make it. So I will be voting no, but I will say that if we are going to do this, which I would be in favor of in case there are other votes, I think that 3% for 3 years and then 5% the fourth year is a little high. I have no problem with people getting raises, but I think the consumer price index has been under 2. I think we just gave both unions, the AFSCME and the AFL-CIO, 1.5% for a year. So I think that the percentage is also a little high. That's all.
Any other alderman? Alderman Franco.
So I have a couple of questions. I think I'll start with Marty. Marty, based on the sentiment out here, there's concern about this not being the right time. Having been on the compensation committee before and having heard about public officials in the past who are basically responsible for compensation, I know there's never a right time. There really isn't. And I just want to make everybody clear, especially the media who has reported this wrong again, that this doesn't affect any aldermen that are currently in position. It happens after the second election, which we have one in the spring and actually then one in 2023. So it wouldn't happen after that. So my question for you, Marty, is because these are tough times and because the 2021 budget is going to be tough, in your capacity as CFO, what is your take on where we're going to be in 2 to 3 years from now, just as a projection, just on your expertise? Because I think that's really what we're looking at. It's not a good time, and it isn't. But in 3 years from now, do we anticipate times being different than they are now, based on what you've seen?
Thank you, Alderman Franco, for that tough nut. I will not give a projection, but I will give a clear response of what the administration is planning. We are planning for better times at the end of the summer or middle of summer next year. We are moving forward with economic development initiatives that that contemplate being open for business. We want to be the first community out of the gate and ready to develop. We cannot predict that will happen, but we certainly are planning for it.
And the other comment I want to make too is that these aren't necessarily cost of living increases as much. There was feeling even on the last compensation committee 3 years ago and this one that the salary of the alderman is not really commensurate with some other public officials, local municipalities. So we're looking at that. So this wasn't necessarily a cost of living. This was a compensation to pretty much get us in the same situation, similar situation as some of our counterparts and other boards and commissions. So I think I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. So based on it not starting to 2023, based on us not being able to vote for ourselves, basically voting for future aldermen and alderwomen, then I will be voting yes on this because in my opinion, these tough times in 3 years forecast, I think we're going to be in a better position. So I feel more comfortable with that. If it was going to start next year, I would be all with everybody else as far as not going yes, because there are going to be some tough times for next year, but we don't, based on anticipating it going more than 3 years, I feel a little bit more comfortable doing this. So I would be voting yes.
Any other aldermen, and speak up because I can't see all of us on the one screen. So if anybody has any comment that I can't see, if you'll just ask for recognition. Well, having that deadly silence, I will say that Mr. Franco. Oh, Alderman Bug, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It's a very difficult situation. Basically, we have to follow the law. So by law, we have to set our compensation many years in the future. That's not really maybe that we would want to do. It's the way it is. So in projecting, we have to try and look at 2023 through 2026. And of course, it's very difficult to try and see where we're going to be at 5 years from now. But we're bound by the law. We cannot make movement on this. I believe our cutoff day is November 12th to make projections for 2023, 24, and so forth. So that being said, as my colleague Alderman Franco mentioned, and doing the analysis, although we are the second largest city in the state, many other municipalities far ahead of us in this arena. We tried to make some compensation update for the mayor. The last time we looked at this, the mayor's compensation was way under the other municipalities, and we made some adjustments last time. So in looking in the future in the best way, and as we said in committee, we are very prayerful that, of course, this COVID will come to an end very soon, will have no impact on 2023 and so forth. And for that reason, I will be voting yes.
Any other aldermen wish to speak on this issue? Alderwoman Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So not to repeat what Alderman Franco and what Alderman Bug have already said, because I do agree with their sentiment. I just think it's very important to emphasize that we are not voting for raises for ourselves. We're voting raises for our positions. None of us know, in 2023, if we will be sitting here. So I just think, like many of you have discussed tonight, my community came out. I did hear some, negative comments on, how could we be talking about raises at this particular time? And of course, we all agree with that specific comment, but we're not talking about raises for today's time or even next year's time. We're talking about raises for our positions, not for us in 2023, because these positions are important, because we are bound by the law. I will be voting yes for this.
Any other aldermen wish to be recognized? All right, I would make the comment as chairman of the Finance Committee that the comments made thus far are certainly everything that was covered, and we actually had 3 meetings that this was touched upon. So I appreciate the comments by the alderman in regard to both sides of the issue. I think that one of the positions that we started with was, quite obviously, it's a very difficult time for many, many people. And as I think Alderwoman Smith said, recognizing that, we still have the sense of what we need to do to plan for the future. And as I think emphasized by Alderman Bug, the fact that these do not take effect immediately, that we are in fact planning for the future. And I think the issue has been over the years confirmed, I think, by the members of this council that served on that compensation committee 4 years ago. This is a part-time job. And we all know that we don't spend just part-time on it, that it takes a considerable number of hours. And even in the COVID-19, with the miracle of Zoom, aldermen are still working very hard in connecting with their constituents, with connecting with the citizens of Aurora. So I think the feeling was 4 years ago, and even prior to that, that there is a concern that we keep on some track in regard to the compensation that is offered for aldermen. We want to encourage people to run for aldermen, but if it becomes a real issue in regard to what time they have to give from their job, which they're not compensated for, we have to be considerate of that, and that we have to have a plan that will take us into the future in fairly compensating aldermen. And again, emphasizing the fact it isn't happening tomorrow or overnight or in May of 2021, that is always have to be set off into the future. The only other comment I'd make is that Alderman Franco's question of Mr. Lyons, we probably were all waiting to hear the answer before we called our stockbroker and got futures in mind. So Mr. Lyons handled that extremely well in that regard. So you don't have to make that call at this point to your stockbroker. So Any other comments from any of the aldermen who wish to be recognized? All right, otherwise, you call the roll, please.
Alderman Yamas,
Pass.
Alderman Garza,
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos,
No.
Alderman Donnell,
No.
Alderman Franco,
Yes.
Alderman Seville,
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns,
No.
Alderman Smith,
Yes.
Alderman Bug,
You're on
Alderman
mute.
Bug, you're on mute.
Yes.
Alderman Lapche,
No.
Alderman Jenkins,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem O'Connor.
Yes.
7 ayes, 4 nays.
All right. Ordinance passes. Madam Clerk, if you'll read the item of the title of the next item.
20-0661, an ordinance setting the compensation of the mayor to be elected in 2021 in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code and the Local Government Officer Compensation Act.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Alderman Garza, second by Alderman Franco. Alderman, if you wish to speak, if you'll indicate so or raise your hand so I can hear you. Alderman Franco?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to make a motion to amend this wording because the mayor's compensation starts June 1st of 2021 and goes and then extends for 4 years. I'm concerned that we're going to be in a budget crunch for that particular year. So I'm going to make a motion that the first year, June 1st, 2021 to 22, be the same compensation as the prior year, basically suspending that year from getting a raise, and then propose that the 3 subsequent years, 22, 23, and 24, be 3%, 3%, and 5%, eliminating that first year of the compensation because that should still be a budget issue in 2021. And Mr. Veenstra, did I do that correctly?
Alderman, if you could restate what your proposed amendment is, I understand that you're looking to make an adjustment as to what occurs in the first year. The way the ordinance is drafted, it spells out what the adjustments are going to be in each subsequent year. So how would you envision the amended ordinance reading?
So the amended ordinance will read in June of 2021 to 2022, no increase.
Okay.
2022 to 2023, 3%, 23 to 24, 3%, and 24. And I think the wording is thereafter the 5%. So basically eliminating the first year and adding because of that, adding 0.5% on those years that we feel the budget is going to be able to absorb that again.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion from the council?
Yeah.
Alderman Lasky?
Yeah, I would, for the same reasons with the alderman raises, I think that the salary is pretty high, and I do appreciate Alderman Franco's not wanting to increase it the first year. I think 3% is a little high these days, and 5% is, I haven't heard anybody get 5% raises, but when you compound those, it gets pretty high. Can someone mute Patty Smith? Anyway, I think that, and I know Alderman Franco last time brought up an argument about that other cities have a village manager that make a lot more money, but we also have a village or a chief management officer, a deputy mayor, a chief of staff. So I think that this isn't the time to give the mayor a raise. So I don't agree with any raises for this, or that's all.
All right. Any alderman with a comment on, we are now talking about the amendment. Any alderman wish to be recognized or speak on this? All right, unless I'm missing somebody, clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Alderman Lamas.
If I could, I just, could you clarify what the amendment would be? It would just be when it would go into effect?
So since I made the amendment, so I'll say, so it would, so the first year would be no increase. That would be the June 1st of 2021 through May 31st of 2022. Then starting the subsequent years would be 3%, 3%, and then 5%, basically eliminating that first year.
Okay, gotcha. So this
So
vote
it's-
would be on that amendment.
So, and just so everybody understands, and we're not going to attempt to do the math at this point, the breakdown of how it would be 0.335.
0.335. The cumulative of that would be 11% versus 12.5% if we left it as it is. So there'd be 1.5% total less over that 4-year period. But basically looking at the first year is the critical year of not getting a raise.
Okay. So 0.335 for drafting purposes.
Correct.
All right, any additional questions? And I'm sorry I didn't recognize again, shout out because I can't see everybody at one time here. All right, Alderman Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The mayor's job is a full-time job, and more than a full-time job, and we're voting for this position. But again, based on the reasons I enumerated prior, I still will be voting no. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion or questions on the amendment that's on the table before us? All
No,
right.
but may I please apologize for not having my thing on mute? I have people at my house that needed to be taken care of for a few seconds. So I apologize openly for that bit of embarrassment.
Well, it's all right, Alderwoman Smith, because you can never be muted except on Zoom. So you'll never be muted. So, all right. Clerk, one more shot here. Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment. Does everybody understand the amendment?
But so are we, just to clarify, are we voting are we voting just to amend the proposed, or this is to give the mayor a raise?
This is to
We are
amend the
voting
proposed.
on amendment on the proposal to eliminate any increase the first year beginning in 2021, leaving the salary at its prior amount.
But
then, okay, and
Oh,
then
sorry.
moving on so if you are voting in favor of this, the only thing that's going to happen is that particular number will change for that first part. Then we still have to go on to vote for the entire issue.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, I'll try it the fourth time. Will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Garza,
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos,
No.
Alderman Donnell,
No.
Alderman Franco,
Yes.
Alderman Seville,
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns,
Yes.
Alderman Smith,
Yes.
Alderman Bug,
Alderman Bug, you're on mute.
I thought I took it off. Yes.
Alderman Lopshay,
No.
Alderman Jenkins,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem O'Connor.
Yes.
9 ayes and 3 nays. And prior to moving on, can we, at some point, I don't want to forget to revisit item 20-0659 regarding Alderman Yamas's vote. Can we do that now, or should we move on first?
Well, we're in the midst of this at this point. I would suggest, I don't think it's procedurally going to be a problem that as soon as this one item is finished, we'll take that one.
Very good, thank you.
All right. And Mr. Veenstra, I just made a ruling, so you can overrule me if you wish on that.
I would have said exactly the same thing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Little did I know that this old cranky machinery of Mayor Pro Tem was going to come into effect again here. So, but all right, the motion passes on the amendment. Now we have before us the original item, which has been amended to say that the pay increase or the compensation increase will be 0, 1 year 21, 22, 3%, 22, 23, 3%, 23, 24, and 5%, 24, 25. That's correct. So are there any additional comments or questions from Alderman Bug?
Yeah, this is a question for Mr. Lyons, I believe. And maybe I overlooked this at committee. What is currently the mayor's allowance for his vehicle per month?
I do not have that in front of me, sir. Mr. Alexandru might. I can look it up for later discussion, but I do not have that in front of me.
Alderman, Alderman, the current allowance is based on the receipts and the actual cost that the mayor has incurred. It's approximately $520. That's my recollection.
I think it's 534, but close enough.
Okay, well, that's where we're setting it at in the ordinance. Yeah, I wanted to see if there was a change or we're just setting it at what it comes out to be. So it comes out to be 534. So we're setting it at 534.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Additional questions or comments from the council? Seeing no hands or not hearing any voices, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Garza,
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos,
No.
Alderman Donnell,
No.
Alderman Franco,
Yes.
Alderman Seville,
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns,
Yes.
Alderman Smith,
Yes.
Alderman Bug,
Yes.
Alderman Lopshay,
No.
Alderman Jenkins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Connor.
Yes.
9 ayes, 3 nays.
All right, ordinance passes. Mr. Mayor, I don't see you, but if you can hear me, you can come back in now.
Can we, excuse me,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think we may want to touch up the roll call on the previous item first.
that's correct, on item 20-0659, if we can please revisit that.
And that is the,
That is the ordinance setting the compensation of the alderman.
okay,
My error, I believe I heard Alderman Yamas say pass, and I just want to confirm what his vote was.
That's correct. It never came back to me. It's yes.
Yes, it's a yes. So that will change the votes, 8 ayes, 4 nays.
all right. We're okay at this point?
I believe we are.
That's a relative term, I understand. We're okay at this point. All right, Mr. Mayor, if you can hear us.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Right.
I will take back the reins. Let's go on to new business. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, we were going to, the clerk suggested that we take care of the one item that was brought off a consent.
Ah, that's right. That's right. All right. So we do have one more item that was brought off consent. Clerk, can you please read the item?
20-0668, an ordinance proposing the establishment of a special service area number 203, Bardwell Community Subdivision, Fox Valley Developers LLC, and calling for a public hearing on the proposed special service area in the city of Aurora, Kane County, and providing for a public hearing and other procedures in connection therewith for pins 15-27-156-056, 15-27-156-057, 15-27-156-058, 15-27-156-059, 15-27-156-060, and 15-27-156-061.
So moved.
There's a motion made by Alderman Garza, seconded by Alderman Jenkins. This matter was pulled off consent solely for the purpose of allowing Alderman Masiacos to abstain from voting on these particular items. Therefore, unless there's any questions, clerk, will you call the roll on that?
Alderman Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Garza,
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos,
Abstain.
Alderman Donnell?
If I could interject, Alderman Masiacos is not present for this vote, so his vote should not be recorded, even as an abstention.
Thank you. Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman LaShay?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
11 ayes.
Motion carries. The ordinance is adopted. Let's move on to new business. Is there a motion to suspend the rules and consider items under the
So
new
move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Harburn, seconded by Alderman Jenkins. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman LaShay?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
12 ayes.
All right, motion carries. Clerk, will you read the first item under new business?
20-0675, a resolution authorizing the chief financial officer to enter into a contract in the not to exceed amount of $2,150,920 to Axon Enterprises Incorporated, or the not to exceed amount of $2,064,375 to WatchGuard Motorola for the provision body worn cameras for the Aurora Police Department.
So moved.
There's been a motion by Alderman Jenkins, seconded
Second.
by Alderman Garza. Are there any questions or discussion regarding this resolution? Questions or discussion regarding this resolution? Alderman Bug, did I see your hand raised, brother?
Was staff going to give a presentation?
Mr. Piggies, can you give a presentation on this particular item?
Well, Mayor, sir, what I'll do, I'll pass it over to our CFO, Marty Lyons, to kick it off. And then from there, we can bring in additional stakeholders as needed to address any questions that you or the council might have.
Mr. Lyons?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Alderman Bug, as you can see in the memorandum, staff has proceeded as was noted at the September 8th council meeting. We have narrowed from 5 vendors down to 2 vendors. As noted in the timeline that we projected at that time a month ago. We have 2 vendors that are selected, and what we are requesting is that the council authorize staff to go through a pilot program for approximately 30 to 45 days to determine which of the 2 vendors will be best able to not only provide us with the body cameras, but to also implement the system and show us how everything works. Mike Pegas can jump in a little bit on detail, but our goal here is to get authorization to move forward with this project in the most expeditious manner possible so that we can have a fully operational system by June or before of 2021. As noted in the introduction, the 2 vendors that are being recommended, they are the higher priced vendors if you were just looking at price, but this is a request for proposal in which the price was 20%, I believe, and the rest of the entire process was based on the vendor's ability to perform. And I can review that scoring process if you would like, Alderman Bug. I'll take that as a yes, that basically we had members of the Aurora Police Department, Finance Department, IT, and we all met, and also Marketplace City. We met on multiple occasions to go through those that had the expertise to go through the proposals in depth, and also to go through the Marketplace City analysis provided to us in summary format, and which is attached to your agenda item tonight. If there is a desire to go through any of that detail, we certainly can. I would just call your attention to slides 4 and 5, which provide both the pricing and the scoring. And I'll say one more thing, also included in this analysis was a note that based on the RFPs, the proposals, that we don't have the full costs highlighted. We will need to look at future costs for the implementation of the system. And we have put a placeholder in the memorandum and stated that once we are fully aware of how the system will function in early 2021 to June 2021, we will come back to the city council with that pricing. And then lastly, as noted, the funding for this project, because body cameras are not strictly a part of the 911 chain of technology, what we are proposing is that we will utilize funds that are available in the general fund and in the 911 fund, but those funds have already been expensed. They have already been presented to the Emergency Telephone Systems Board and have been approved as expenses. And to the expenses specifically are all of the salaries and operating expenses of our 911 staff. So we have already applied for and received those funds. So they are now eligible for general usage. And we will come back to the council with the final disposition of where the funds will come from through a budget amendment.
Question.
Good question.
Alderman Law.
Marty, the cameras are going to come through the what a MUFT, whatever it is, the tax on the gasoline. Is that correct?
No.
No.
No, they will. The cameras are going to be paid for out of general corporate dollars that are currently residing in both the general fund and in the E911 fund as surplus after they have already been designated. They've already been received from the ETSB. So it's going to be from those two sources. We're making a very bright line distinction that we are not saying that we're using 911 surcharge funds. Those funds have already been drawn and approved by the ETSB board for use on 911 salaries and operating costs. So they are in effect general purpose dollars of the city.
Alderman Franco.
Yeah, Marty, I know that when we talked about this before, that the yearly cost, there's a storage yearly cost that's fairly high. So that storage cost, is that part of what we're looking at this, that some of these companies have a different storage cost, or is that even not a factor in this? Because I know we talked about maybe $900,000 a year for storage. How does that work into this?
Actually, for the two that we're choosing, we are looking at a 5-year plan. And Mike, I'll be happy to turn it over to you. But that's one of the reasons that we are choosing these two firms, is they provided the most complete 5-year proposal as opposed to an install and walk away, which was what we had in a couple of the cases.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Seville, you're on mute.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I just had one question with to Marty, I guess. Both Axon and the Motorola systems, what other communities do we know of that are currently utilizing them?
I'll defer to APD and to Mike Pegas on that one.
Right. So in terms of Motorola, it's Chicago. Their emergency operations center uses it. Detroit. Also, I'm going to refer to Andrew Watkins, who's the chief operation officer at marketplace.city, to basically just to keep me honest in terms of the other customers that actually.
Yep. I'm pulling up that. Sorry, I had to jump to that slide. I have to get that up. Yeah. So for Axon, they have a pretty broad. They're a market leader, but some similar sized engagements. So Mike, I know, is quoting some of the bigger ones. We asked both for similar sizes to Aurora Well as well. Is Clearwater, Florida, Oceanside, California, and then in Minneapolis, which is a little bit bigger. And then WatchGuard, as you mentioned, Detroit, Raleigh, North Carolina, Overland Park, Kansas. But both of them have, 25, 50 plus implementation. So they're both, top market leaders.
And have they had a long-term relationship with these vendors, or is it recent, something that we're undergoing as well? Similar.
Sorry, with these cities, varies in length. I mean, some of them have had them in place for 4 or 5 years. I'd have to look exactly what the length of time is for each. I don't have that right in front of me.
And also, I actually would mention the fact that for one of the vendors, we actually did site visits with the Aurora Police Department, their command staff, to several of the locations, and basically observed and talked to that. Commander Dorsett, I'm not sure if he's on the line, but he can speak to that. But we visited a lot of these sites where one of the vendors actually is providing ongoing service as of today. And they have a landmark initiative for one that's in Detroit that's still ongoing and has been actually documented as a case study by a lot of the top tier consulting companies today. So the relationships are long-term, Alderman Seville, and I believe there's a proven track record there.
And do these cameras work in all sorts of light, no matter what hour of the day?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are technical requirements and capabilities. So there's infrared, there's heat, right? And there's daytime. So yes, there are analytics where that actually support different variations of conditions, environmental conditions as well.
And do the officers have to activate something to go from light to heat to infrared automatically?
Those are automatic. They basically eliminated the human intervention in those aspects.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman O'Connor.
Kind of related to the two most recent questions. I thought I saw on the chart that Axon actually was involved with Springfield and with Elgin, speaking about kind of similar cities to ourselves. Is that the case?
I'll leave that to you, Andrew.
Double check that really quickly. Sorry, jumping between.
Alderman O'Connor, Commander Doors. If I can't say Elgin is for sure, I've spoken with their deputy chief about their Axon system, and I believe Springfield is one of them. But I'm sure.
Yes, Springfield, Waukegan, yep, that one. I'm going to my other set of information. Yes, the Axon is involved in all of those.
Right.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to go to Waukegan because that'll open up a whole series of questions. But in this kind of case, when those cities are cited, and I think, Commander, you just answered in part, we do make an effort to reach out. I mean, obviously, we can call Seattle, we can call Austin, Texas, or we can call, the big cities, but we're looking for compatibility, and certainly in our area. So contact was made, as you said, with Elgin at least, Commander?
Yes, I had some extensive phone calls with their deputy chief about their Axon system.
Which I assume led to they're satisfied with it.
We were just really talking about their technical requirements, policy, things like that. I didn't really ask for his satisfaction with it, but he didn't state that he wasn't.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess I would just add, that's one of the reasons we're doing the pilot. A lot of times we rely on the reference and then we sign the document. In this case, we're taking the extra step of a 30 to 45 day test run. We certainly don't anticipate that the top two, that we won't pick either one. And I had a question earlier from an alderman about, are we picking both? No, through this pilot program, we will pick one or the other and sign agreements.
But also, I actually would caveat Alderman O'Connor that for the other vendor, we did get direct feedback from Chicago, from Detroit, and also from Miami Gardens on their satisfaction with the system and the ongoing delivery of those technologies and solutions. So, and also there was Chief Zeman, it was DC Cross or Commander Cross at the time, and also DC Keith Jackson. And we all received that information directly from those specific municipalities.
All right, thank you.
Do the officers have anything to say in reference to this?
Dorzaf.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Alderman Harper?
Do you have anything to say in reference to this?
Do I have anything to say on it? Yeah, and this is kind of a follow-up a little bit more on Alderman O'Connor's question about speaking to the other agencies. In my opinion, a lot of the technical requirements are going to be similar. You know, the cameras, when the officers are wearing them, the quality of the video, the quality of sound, the key to successful implementation is going to be the back-end integration that we have with our CAD system and our records management system, and our ability to redact and share the video. The video is going to be requested. We have 4 different prosecutors, 4 different counties. How nimble we are and how quickly we can redact and get these videos out to our prosecutors, be responsive to FOIA, be responsive to subpoenas, is going to be crucial. And that's kind of the bulk of what I was speaking with the deputy chief about in Elgin, is I really want to know on the back end, their integration, what's working, what's not working, and also their support staff and how much they need to keep up with the demand, both from a FOIA perspective and also from the state's attorney's office. So that's going to be a huge part of this implementation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Masiacos?
Mayor, just for clarification, will the police department, will the brass be making the decision 100% based on their comfortability on which we're going, which company we're going to go with, or is there going to be some input by the finance department in regards to what the final say is?
I would actually think the whole team will stay together on this. This is one that obviously finance won't be in there day to day, but I want to go and see the cameras. I missed out on it. We started it in Evanston and then they finished it after I'd left. I want to be a part of that and have some of those discussions to make sure we have folks that are satisfied. But it really is going to be APD and IT to make sure that it works well in the field, but it also works well for administration and all the way in the courtroom, that it's going to work in all of those places for us.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Jenkins?
Piggybacking on what Mr. Lyons just said, with these systems, will they be where, do we know or we won't know once we get into it in terms of, are the systems able to be turned off by the officers? Or if, let's say if the system fails, is there some kind of mechanism that can let the office know so it can be replaced immediately? What are some of those situations? Is that a little different?
I can actually take that. I actually can take that one, Marty. So one of the 2 vendors, they do have a capability that's called record after the fact, right? So whether the officer turns it off or turns it on, it's still recording. That is a capability, and it is a proprietary function of one of the vendors. And it is one of those value-added services that, you know, it's very kind of leading edge in the market, right? Which leads back to the point why these 2 vendors were selected, right? So that capability is there.
But it's only capable by one of the vendors, not the other.
Capable by one vendor. That is absolutely.
I do think that this is a very new technology, meaning there's 4 or 5 years worth of data out there. And it also to bring APD into this, policies, training, how you use the system, those are all going to be critical things, and not just whether the machine itself is going to override, because it's the same thing with how we use radios and laptops and all of those devices that help the officer be more efficient. So it is going to be a technical and technological installation, but there's also going to be a lot of policy that comes out associated with the utilization of the cameras going forward.
Absolutely. And I would add, Alderman Jenkins, that this is one of the reasons why we've consulted with Johns Hopkins University, their applied physics laboratory, and which Mr. Lyons has documented in the cover memo in terms of those additional considerations as it relates to data storage, redaction, budget, training, policy, and so forth, or so on. So these are all different considerations that we're looking at. I mean, we're doing our due diligence and rolling up our sleeves to make sure that, you know, we're basically diving in, making sure that we've scoped out the requirements to the best of our abilities and making the right decision, providing that information to our public safety officers so they can basically have the service delivered to them that basically meets their requirements.
Well, I understand that, but I think the citizens want to know, will be assured that we don't have cases where, okay, I turned off the camera right when something occurs, or my camera wasn't working. You know, we gotta eliminate that kind of stuff to make people feel that, you know, it's not, you know, usual. We just got cameras on, but we still gonna, you know, somebody can turn it off or it claims it doesn't work.
Right. So
not against the officer, it's against what our citizens want to make sure of is that we have a system that says, no, you're not going to be able to turn it off when you want to. And if it's something wrong with it, we find out and get you a new one so that you're not without a body camera.
Right. So to answer your question directly, Alderman Jenkins, based on the two vendors that we selected, once we do the proof of concept and the pilot, if the group, the police department, IT, and finance determine based on the scoring that one vendor that provides that particular functionality is the one that we select, yes, we can say unequivocally 100% that will not be an issue, right?
Thank you.
Alderman Jenkins, just if I can. So just real quick. So that can be driven by policy, but I think to your point, you're saying you want on the back end the health of the system where it tells the administrator, it knows when, you know, a camera is malfunctioning, you know, legitimately malfunctioning, low on battery, whatever the health of the hardware is. I think they all had that. Our current in-squad camera system that we have it happens to be WatchGuard. And that back end kind of gives you the health of those camera systems and the squad cars. That's not foolproof, but that's a back end tool. In addition, as far as when to turn it on, when to turn it off, it's very strictly driven by statute under the circumstances. However, there is only one, in the market right now that has that record after the fact function that is always recording in the background. It doesn't record necessarily an event, but if you want to go back to create an event, you can capture it. I don't know if that clarifies anything, but there's policy, there's technology. It can be event driven where the officers are going. If it's a person with a weapon and that's how it's designed, we can have the CAD system interface with that. And as soon as that, based on that nature code, all the officers, when they get in a certain geographic area that call, their cameras come on. So there's different ways to accomplish what you're saying, but it is technology. It can fail but there's ways to manage that as best we can, including policy.
So just to clarify just one more time, based on what Commander Dorsap said, if that one vendor is selected, whether the officer turns it on or turns it off, it's still recording. It has nothing to do with human intervention. It will record after the fact. There's a particular cycle duration, maybe a week or so, that footage will be available, whether the officer turns it on or turns it off. It's still recorded if that one vendor is selected.
Thank you.
Alderman Hart-Burns.
Mayor, I just want to know, have they defined someone in the department that would monitor the cameras on a regular basis? Whoever that person may be that would observe at all times the camera. And I know you got 3 shifts, so just trying to see if you define someone already that will monitor the cameras if in fact, the batteries are low or any changes may occur.
Dorzaf.
Yeah, that would just be the back end system admin. And yes, they'll be regularly. We do it currently right now with our WatchGuard system. It tells you the health of it. And it would be, I believe both vendors have that, that system health back end application that the admin will be monitoring.
Alderman Masiacos.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up on the subject line of Alderman Jenkins. It's an assumption that technology will continue to improve, right, with these systems, Mr. Pegues? So whatever we purchase today, it's going to change in the near future, and it's just going to continue going with AI, correct?
That is correct, Alderman.
Right. Okay. Because I also want to highlight the fact that and reiterate what we all know. And I think it's important to state that we do have a professional police department, professionally trained, and I think we're going to continue having them professionally trained. And one of the hallmarks too of the Citizen Review Board is also to keep an eye on things as well, and things are running smoothly. So thank you for the time, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, Alderman. Alderman Bug.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for Mr. Lyons. And being as the timing of this, we begin our budget review tomorrow and starting to delve into that. Can you expound on what would happen if we delayed this decision a year? What would the impact on the budget be? Would other things open up versus committing this money at this time?
Certainly, Alderman Bug. Looking at the 5-year funding of all sources, whether it be ETSB or other general sources, we do a 5 to 10-year forecast for all of our specific funds. The ETSB fund gets a little bit low on funds out in year 3 or 4, but I think we've already all forgotten in some ways. I know I haven't, but thanks to the great work of the APD and the team, we went from about $1 million in wireless 911 surcharge fees a year up to 2.3 million. So a year with our changeover and working with Naperville. We think that's going to be a stable source of funds for our 911 system. That frees up other revenues / resources to handle this project. So the short of it is that delaying it 1 year will not impact next year's budget. We will be spending dollars out of capital sources. They will, the way that we are proposing this will not have an impact on whether or not we are doing a 5% decrement in the general operating fund. So this will not be impacted one way or the other by delaying it.
Thank you. I think that's very important information for our citizens to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions from the Alderman? With no other questions or comments, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman Lopshay?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
12 A's.
Motion carries. The resolution is approved. Sorry, the resolution is approved. Clerk, can you read the next item under new business?
20-0684, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the County of Kane, Illinois for the reimbursement of eligible COVID-19 expenses from Kane County's portion of CARES Act funding.
So move.
Second.
There's been a motion moved by Alderman Hart Burns, seconded by Alderman Garza. Before we get any questions or comments, Mr. Alexandru, want to give us a little background on this? What's going on with this?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Lyons and I have been working diligently on CARES Act funding since the beginning of the CARES Act legislation. This is what we've been waiting for quite a while, and that is the IGA for the city to receive the CARES Act allocation of approximately $7.8 million from Kane County. So this is a necessary step that Kane County has established. Mr. Lyons attached the IGA to the item. It was reviewed. It came from the Kane County State's Attorney, and Mr. Veenstra also reviewed it. And so we would like the council's consideration tonight to approve it so we can get it back to Kane County and then await word on when we will actually receive our CARES Act funding.
Any questions or comments from the council? Alderman Franco.
Yeah, Alex, was this the initial amount we had anticipated getting? Because I remember when we talked about Kane and DuPage combination, it was going to be about 12.5-ish. Is this a little lower than we thought we might get?
It is. We actually, since the inception, the city had an opinion and an interpretation of the U.S. Treasury guidelines that govern CARES Act. There was much discussion and consideration about that interpretation and what the counties believed versus the interpretation. There were subsequent U.S. Treasury guideline amendments that came out. Finally, in the end, the counties agreed. However, they did not choose to allocate because they have the ultimate authority on how to allocate and what amounts. So even though we did submit, Marty and his team did an outstanding job documenting to the letter of the requirements eligible expenses, but the county chose to a lot less than what we put in. So you are correct. That's what has occurred. So we're at 7.8 million. Marty, what was the amount?
We were at 7.8 for Kane, 2.54 for DuPage, 480,000 for Will, and about 250,000 that we are going directly to the state on behalf of Kendall residents. Just one more thing, Alderman Franco, because of the way we submitted at about 170% of what we thought they were going to give us. So to the extent that there is anything available in supplemental distributions, to the extent that the deadline is extended, we'll be ready to submit for more dollars immediately if the counties do not allocate those funds elsewhere.
So can I interpret it that we're disappointed and maybe we still don't agree with what they allocated, but we got to live with it?
We are not disappointed. We are very thankful that the counties stepped up and provided us with this CARES Act money. We, I believe, just had a difference of opinion in what we believed was eligible, because we still believe we had eligible expenses that met the letter of the Treasury guidance. But the way the system was set up, the counties were given the direction and authority down from the state of Illinois. So it kind of trickled down to local municipalities. I could tell you that as a member of the city, as a member of Metro West and DuPage mayors and managers, we're all very thankful that we got these funds. So,
and I would just add on Mr. Alexander's behalf, because of all of his efforts and the team's effort, I think we'll be getting every dime that a municipality could get, we'll be getting. And that includes the additional $1 million for Hesed House and other programs that we're working on with the county. So they are working with us to try and develop smaller dollar amounts that could be more specifically focused. So we keep working with them to get as many dollars as we can to make sure that as we go through COVID for the next 6 months, we're still working at this.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can add one more point.
Please do.
And to your credit, Mr. Mayor, you asked us to go back as a staff to DuPage and seek additional funding for additional programs. So staff put together an additional ask of about $2.5 million on top of the 2.54 we received for things like rental assistance in DuPage County, restaurant and small business assistance, as well as helping the school district there close the technology gap. So working in collaboration with DuPage County, Chairman Cronin, Board Member Healy, and others, we have been able to cobble together from authorized CARES Act funding of DuPage County for those specific programs direct assistance and opportunities to the DuPage portion of Aurora. So we're very thankful for that as well. So while that didn't turn out to be an additional actual check to us, the bottom line was we were looking to benefit Aurora residents and businesses in the DuPage County portion, and we are doing that presently. In fact, today, we had staff going door to door to businesses on top of emails and phone calls to make sure that those DuPage businesses and restaurants who could qualify for the additional DuPage Small Business Grant Program, again, funded by CARES Act funding, would do so. We also took the opportunity to make folks aware all over the city about an ongoing state program through DCEO called the BIG Business Grant. I forget what the I stands for right now. But anyway, the 204 is working to close gaps with a program that DuPage authorized. And then finally, there's a rental assistance program underway that will assist residents of DuPage County who live in Aurora with up to 6 months of various rental financial assistance items. So we're very encouraged by that. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for that directive, because I think it's making a difference. And like Marty said, we still have to the end of the year. We put in more than necessary or authorized, I should say, and we will continue to talk to the counties. And if there's any leftover unallocated funds, we will be requesting as best we can.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the alderman?
Alex?
Yes, Alderman Lofty.
Can you please let us know about that? We have, several of us have large portions of DuPage County. The things you're talking about?
Yeah, we I believe sent that out. We had Investor Aurora working it, the chambers, but I'll make sure that you sent that out. Actually, it all went out today, but I'll double check.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions or comments? There being none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Garza,
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos,
Yes.
Alderman Donnell,
Yes.
Alderman Franco,
Yes.
Alderman Seville,
Yes.
Alderman Hart Burns,
Yes.
Alderman Smith,
Yes.
Alderman Bug,
Yes.
Alderman Lopshay,
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins,
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor,
You're on mute, Alderman O'Connor.
Yes.
12 ayes.
Motion carries. The ordinance is adopted. That concludes new business. Let's go on to reports. We have 20-0685, the Corporate Fund Investment Report, third quarter 2020. I acknowledge the receipt of the third quarter 2020 Corporate Funds Investment Report. Are there any questions or discussions on the Corporate Fund Investment Report? All right, no questions. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. The 20-0687 Treasurer's Report for September 2020. I acknowledge the receipt of the September 2020 Treasurer's Report. Are there any questions or discussions on the Treasurer's Report?
Mayor,
I'm sorry, Mr. Lyons.
we do have the PowerPoint that would be the COVID update that I would do normally as a part of the Treasurer's Report, and I've had a couple of questions from Alderman about that. So it's only a few slides, but that would be a part of the Treasurer's Report these days with COVID.
Please proceed, sir.
Thank you. All right, do we have the slideshow up?
There.
There?
So,
We have just an update. I'm not changing the format. We just updated by months. As we just noted, we have 2.54 million in DuPage County grants, 7.7, 7.8 it is, to be received from Kane County, 480 from Will, and 250 from Kendall. Everything is in. Actually, we're just finishing off the Kendall one. It should go out tomorrow. Financial impacts, we are, it's just it's disheartening to have the close up because we went down to just 3% below 2019, but below the 2019 sales tax for what would have been July received in October. So when we were open for business this summer, July and August, we were doing very well. So hopefully we will be able to continue that on because that has provided a great stability to the general fund budget. Income tax, we won't know what's going on until next year when we see the impacts of all of the unemployment. Right now, the receipts that we're receiving of people who are paying their income tax from last year is very good. And then lastly, property taxes are on schedule. We're up as of September 30th, we were at 96 to 97% received, and we usually have some stragglers that we receive in October. So operating funds are in good shape compared to last year at this time. Last month, we were at $7 million better than last year. This month, we are at $9 million better than last year. Again, this is due completely to the austerity moves that we've made in the general fund to hold back on expenses. So, and I'm sorry, that last bullet point should say 2021, and we will be talking about how we've closed that deficit during the budget review process. So this was our slide originally, but way back in March, where we weren't sure what was going to happen. And this is where we're at right now. And I just would point out that being above 40, almost 43 million in cash balances, that is pre-receipt of any of our CARES money. So we will get the CARES dollars in, then we will have several large payments that we have not made. For instance, we were holding off on making retiree trust payments. We are making all of those other post-employment benefit payments. We are making all of our quarterly payments to our partners like Invest Aurora, to our quality of life grants. All those are being made for the whole year with no reductions. And we feel that, and Alderman O'Connor, for tomorrow's presentation, I'll show this graph completed with the projection out to the end of the year. We think we'll be okay through the end of the year as our revenues decline a little bit, as they always do. So sales tax better than expected, property tax on time, building permits doing better than, when we say expected, better than the March expectation. We are still 8% below budget, but that will go up when we make all of those payments we've been holding off on. So our goal is to stay under budget on the expense side and on the revenue side. And then we will be in a good cash position to start next year. The reasons for caution, well, in April and May, when we were shut in, we were down 30 to 26%. If we get shut in again, we could be back down to that amount. And we are right along the edge right now for sales tax purposes that we could be closed up again, and we would have a significant loss again in revenue that right now we aren't seeing. And as noted, the reopening, I've just said that. We already have, I'm going to go to the next slide. The positivity rate at 8%. We've gone to orange. We are a little bit concerned about November expenses based on election issues. That's a word from APD. And if shut down, then our 2021 revenue projections may need to be adjusted slightly downward. When we did the budget, we finished the budget, we were not at the positivity rate, so we'll need to look at that as we go through the budget review process. So what are we doing? The good news is we are not doing an additional line of credit. And I just informed our banks, our bankers and our financial advisors that we would not need to refinance the 2020 debt. That's incredibly important. We are looking at that for 2021 as a budget balancing tool, but we won't need to do it now. We're still holding the line on hiring, and that, but as we get into this season, our first responders start to bring in public works essential staff for snow. And also we have a few vacancies in water production. And in a public health crisis, we have to make sure the water production plant is fully staffed. Other hires we're holding off again for another month. Same thing with those decision packages. We just keep pushing them out a month, waiting to see how we're doing. We have been doing several capital improvements plans. Next year's budget does have many projects with a green light, especially in water, stormwater, all of the enterprise funds. So we will be moving forward with capital as we have a much better handle on where we really are with operating. And I think that's it. I will close that sharing.
Question for Mr. Lyons. Alderman Franco.
Yeah, Marty, that was a great presentation. I like how you put those bullet points there. Very easy to understand. The suspension for new hires, which I understand. How long has that been in place? How long have we been doing that?
Since I thought it was April, Mr. Alexander. I believe we didn't quite. We formulated our plans April, May, when we really when it was clear that we were going to be shut in for a while.
We have consistently had that as one of our first austerity measures, and that has continued with the exception of public safety. And as Marty mentioned, some essential services in public works. We have to continue our water utility, for example, and some of our other core essential public work services. So that has been consistent, and it's been a bullet in pretty much, I believe, every update that Marty and I have provided.
Thank you.
Mr. Lyons, can you also do me a favor? Alderman Lofty has asked on a number of occasions during city council that why have we not cut, as other cities have, our staff, employees? Can you explain to Alderman Lofty as well as the rest of the aldermen that in having a hiring freeze and not replacing people that leave with attrition, it's almost as though we have cut staff?
Should I use different words? Because I think you just said it, Mayor.
Well,
seriously, we will have a slight uptick, as I noted, when we make some of the payments, especially for the retiree health. We want to make that payment. But as you noted, by holding these positions open, they have the net effect of a decrement, we're not laying off our people who are here. We're holding open positions where we have vacancies. The impact to our bottom line is the same. We do have a lot of folks, and we had a long meeting this morning with Public Works. I take it back this afternoon with Public Works about how they're a little bit light on staff and how it's going to get tight. But they have been working for the last 6 months with a variety of vacancies. And even though we have hired and we have sent officers to the police academy and done our own fire academy, we are below staffing on a net basis. I've done in October, I think I'm up to about 8 or 9 police and fire retirees. So it is, all these folks are retiring to give us, a net decrease in our expenses. I was just looking at the summary of general fund. Police and fire are close to being right at budget, which we actually don't mind. That's what we want. We need them. And all of the rest of the departments are substantially under budget to give us that 8% under budget year to date. We're basically 1 month in savings that we've got right now.
Based on what Mr. Lyons has stated, are there any questions from the alderman? Thank you for the presentation, sir. Appreciate it.
May I have a quick question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Lofty.
So Marty, you said there's going to be a deficit next year in 2021.
As is always the case when we do a budget each year, staff comes in and gives their their goals and objectives. And we compare those to the revenues that we know to come in. This year, we had the situation of not wanting to have any increase in revenues because of the situation all of our residents and businesses are faced, because our revenues are their expenses. So we only have an increase in property taxes for the police and fire pension. So from that, if departments are asking for more dollars, you end up with a structural deficit each year. And then we go through our regular process in August where we meet with the departments and cut back their requests and develop the proposed budget, which will be opened and reviewed tomorrow. That does not have a deficit in it. We have proposals on how to eliminate that deficit, and those include a 5% decrement to all non-public safety departments.
Thank you. Additional questions for Mr. Lyons? Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Connor, Alderman O'Connor, do you have a question? Okay, thank you very much.
No.
Then we are done with the treasurer's report. No motion or vote is needed on that. Let's go on to the bills. Is there a motion to approve and pay the bills?
So moved.
Agenda moved by Alderman Hardburn, second by Alderman Franco. Are there any questions or discussions on the bills? There being none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Alderman Donnell, your mute is on.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hartburns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman Lache?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
12 ayes.
Motion carries. The bills are approved. There is no need for a closed session this evening.
Move to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn by
Second.
Alderman Burns, second by Alderman Garza. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderman Hartburns?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderman Lache?
Yes.
Alderman Jenkins?
Yes.
Alderman O'Connor?
Yes.
12 ayes.
Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Yet another successful city council meeting has come to an end. We have completed it. All right. So you guys have a good night this evening, and we'll see you next week at COW.
All right. Bye-bye.